With Nocturnal Blossom, you will slash upwards into the air and can also lift enemies up with you. This will mainly be used to gain height, and because of that, it pairs very well with the next PA, Lunar Flourishing. Normally, when used on the ground, normal Flourishing will have you quickly rise into the air to then descend rapidly while slashing on your way down. This then concludes with an uppercut immediately after landing, which can also be used to launch enemies. If used when in the air, no matter the height, you will skip the first part of the animation completely and go right into a downward strike, and the subsequent uppercut. Because of this feature, you can then be comboed off of a bunch of things, like a counter, a Katana combat dash, and even after the first skill we mentioned, Nocturnal Blossom, as Nocturnal will rise you up for Lunar to bring you right back down. While this nice little combo will be outclassed by others after crafted PAs become a thing, this pair is worth using on NA for now for some quick single target DPS. Thriving Bellflower is a quick AoE cut around oneself and is great for mobbing. Uncharged, the hit radius is much smaller, and is limited to about a third of the damage as the perfect charge version, which hits twice, each dealing about 50% of the total damage and is much wider. Once you get the hang of charging it properly, you will be able to spam it back to back pretty quickly. Cherry Blossom Finale performs 2 quick cuts directly in front of you. When perfect charged, it is much stronger and has a much bigger AoE. There is then a crafted version, which is much faster and acts slightly different as it starts you off with a single very quick cut. By performing a perfect charge by releasing the PA button at the correct time, you will then follow up with a second more powerful swing in the opposite direction. When used on the ground, you will also be lifted ever so slightly into the air. However, when used while airborne, your height will maintain the same. Because of this, it is commonly used while on the ground to gain height to then combo into Lunar Flourishing. It is also common just to spam a few times in a row due to how fast it is. Eviscerating Bloom, one perfect charge, will send out a wave of energy in a straight line in front of you. This hits multiple times, 9 to be exact, and most of those hits, which are also the strongest hits, are at the furthest reaching part of the PA. Keeping this in mind, it is best to try to always position yourself so that the very end of the PA is landing on the spot you're trying to hit. This is more forgiving versus enemies with bigger hitboxes, but is pretty easy to get used to, and is a nice tool to have for some form of range damage. Soaring Camellia tosses your katana out like a spinning blade and performs a slight arc before returning to your character. You will, however, be stuck in place while using this and cannot cancel out of this either. The upside to that would be that you cannot be knocked back or staggered while the PA is in use. Unfortunately, there is very little reason to use this PA as there are too many drawbacks compared to Eviscerating Bloom, which is used at about the same distance. It should be noted though that Soaring Camellia hits 7 times, so it is decent to help build up hit count for katana combat. Morning Mistreaver is your go-to PA for mobility. There are no charging mechanics to think about with this, just hit the button and you'll be on your way. What's even better is that there are iframes during the gap closing portion, and you can cancel out of this PA whenever you want with a sidestep or weapon action block. Spring Flowerstorm, when perfect charge, will lunge at enemies up to 4 times in succession, which you can somewhat control with directional inputs. Though, the brunt of the damage does come from the last hit, which hits twice for a combined total of almost 2/3 of the entire PA's damage. That being said, it is something that should be committed to, as cutting it short anywhere will result in a huge loss of damage. All in all, this PA is great for keeping up with fast, constantly moving enemies, but requires a little bit of setup. Flash of the Lotus will quickly move you in the direction of your target and have you pass right through them. At that point, you can either spend a little bit more PP and use a directional input to slash in the same direction as the input, or make use of the perfect attack window it grants. Keep in mind that 80% of the damage comes from the slash, and that it is a decent gap closer, but unlike Morning Mistreaver, it does not offer any iframes during the movement. Unspoken Barbarity has you radiate a shockwave outwards from your character that will stun anything that is vulnerable to stun. Volcanic Carnation starts you off in a slow animation where you draw a circle in the air. During this time, you will be stuck in place while ignoring knockbacks and staggers. Once your blade completes a full rotation, you will then follow up with a huge downward strike. This PA can be somewhat controlled with a directional input and can also be cancelled out at any stage. Lastly, an interesting part about this PA is that while using it, if you have released your katana focus, you will quickly regain focus. There's then a crafted version of Volcanic Carnation too. And with this, there is no longer a windup. Instead, it can be fired off instantly or charged up to 2 different stages. Something else to note is that you can actually hold this charge for as long as you want. And very similarly to the uncrafted version, you will gain focus back slowly while charging when in a release state. All in all, the crafted version is much better to use when you get a hold of it. And that's about it for Katana PAs for Braver. Take care.